Exercise is my medicine, and it's one of the things I do in life that I am absolutely passionate about. But I'm also a user of Omnipod 5 and a type 1 diabetic. So how does that all work out for me? Because having a workout routine that's regular is hard enough without also having to juggle type 1 diabetes. So let's chat. Hey everyone, and welcome to my video today. My name is Olivia and I am a type 1 diabetic and have been so for just about over 20 years now. And today I'm talking to you guys about my experience with being an endurance runner and also battling type 1 diabetes and having the Omnipod 5. So to start with a little bit of my background is I was a runner in high school and I was a runner in college, and now well into adulthood I am still running. And I typically run between 5 to 10 miles a day. And I do that every single morning. But within the past 6 months to a year, I have tried to work more on doing other exercises besides just endurance running because I started getting hip pains. And I am 32 years old, which in my opinion is a little too young to be experiencing hip pain. But when I had talked to an orthopedic doctor, they had recommended that I start doing exercises outside running just to kind of give my other muscles more of a workout versus just constantly all on my legs. So hopefully, even though for runners, knee replacements and hip replacements are kind of inevitable, hopefully it kind of prolongs that process and I can live a little bit more of my life without having to experience that. So within the past 6 months to a year, I have a gym membership now. So I try to stick to running 3 to 4 days a week. And then 2 to 3 days a week, I go to the gym and do strength training, or I do spinning, or I do Pilates. And I will say I've noticed a huge difference in my body. But regardless, this is not a video necessarily targeted towards people looking to learn about fitness and all of that. It is more so a video to target those who are battling type 1 diabetes, or maybe they have the Omnipod 5 insulin pump and they're trying to figure out the best way to exercise around that. Now, as I've stated in my previous videos, I have been on the Omnipod 5 insulin pump for just about 4 months now, and there is a learning curve in the beginning, especially with exercise. And prior to the insulin pump, I was doing self-injections using a needle pens. I used the Novolog and the Levemir, and I felt like I had a very good system with my exercise routine and that system. But once I switched over to the insulin pump, there definitely was a learning curve. So I'm here to share that with you guys today. And let's get into it. So basically what I do is I start every single day, except one day a week I take off and sleep in. I start off every day with working out, with doing some sort of fitness, whether I go to the gym or whether I run. Now, a big reason that I do this is, one, I am a morning person. I would much rather wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning than stay up an extra hour later at night. So typically I wake up every day at 5 o'clock in the morning or by 5 a.m. and I either go to the gym or I run. So I have found, whether I am on the Omnipod or whether I was not on the Omnipod yet, that working out first thing in the morning just was a lot better for my blood sugar. And I realized this when I was pregnant, because when I was pregnant, a lot of times in the morning I would feel nauseous, so I would not run or work out, and I would wait until later into the day to do that. And when I would run later in the day, my sugars would start falling and dropping the second I started. And I was so annoyed because it would be 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd be out for my run, and just a few minutes into my run, my Dexcom would read to me, 82 hours down. And I was flabbergasted because in the morning I never had that issue. Like I said, I run 5 to 10 miles in the morning without really having any issues with my blood sugar. I wake up, I have a coffee with some cream in it, and I hit the road, and I typically don't have many issues in the morning. So my endocrinologist told me that the reason that was a problem is because as the day progresses and goes on, you are more and more sensitive to insulin. So first thing in the morning when I first wake up, I am not sensitive to insulin that I'm taking. So any exercise I do will not drop my sugar as much. Whereas if I'm running later in the day, any insulin I have in my system, my body will use it more so when I'm exercising and make my sugars drop faster. So she had recommended to try to make sure my workouts are first thing in the morning. So since hearing this news, I have been running in the morning. Now that I'm on the Omnipod, they do have an activity mode on the receiver that you can turn on before exercising. And what I like to do, and as a tip for all my other Omnipod users, is to put the exercise activity mode on a good hour before you start working out. So that way it can kind of raise your sugars up a little bit before you start. So that way you have a little bit more of a buffer before you start exercising. Now, if you put the activity mode on right as you're starting, your sugars are more likely to drop because you have more insulin in your system. But if you put that activity mode on an hour before, it will start giving you less insulin before you even start the workout. So that way, when you do start working out, you have less insulin floating through your body. So that really helps as well. Because sometimes I do go to the gym later in the day. And when I say later in the day, I mean at like 9 a.m. And even then, I notice a huge difference with the activity mode, that my sugars drop so quickly, more so at 9 o'clock than they do at 5 o'clock when I typically work out. So my biggest tip for diabetics and for especially Omnipod users is try to get your workout in as early as humanly possible, because your body's less sensitive to that insulin. But also make sure if you do use the Omnipod, you're putting your activity setting on before you start, so that way your body can kind of prepare for all that activity. Working out with Omnipod is very challenging, I must say, just because I've noticed, since it's giving you a continuous insulin drip throughout the day, you always have all that insulin in your system, and it's hard to get your sugars too high. I mean, it's a good thing your sugars won't get too high, but as you know, when you're exercising, you kind of want your sugars to be a little bit higher, because you don't want to be working out with your sugars in the 60s or 70s. It's a mess. You start feeling lightheaded, and it's super dangerous. But working out with Omnipod is very challenging for that reason. So since starting Omnipod, I always have hard candies in my purse. And sometimes if I'm at the gym or it's later in the day and I'm working out and I can feel myself start to drop, because at first I start feeling lightheaded in my head when my sugars start dropping. The first thing I do is I just go to my purse, grab a hard candy, and then I suck on it while I'm working out. And while it doesn't make my sugars go too high, it kind of keeps it from dropping any further. Or I just step aside, take 15-20 minutes as a break, and then restart my workout. But I would be lying if I told you that working out with Omnipod was easy, because Omnipod, I would say, does make it, harder working out. But if you have, the preparations and you have things with you to keep yourself steady in your sugars, then it's not so bad. So as for our recommendations with the Omnipod 5, make sure you have some hard candies on you. That really, really helps. Work out first thing in the morning, if possible. I know that not everyone has the privilege of either being a morning person like me, or they just don't have the capability with their work schedule to get up that early and to exercise that early. But I have found that that is the most beneficial way to keep my sugars level. I'll give you a great example right now. This morning I ran 5 miles, and I woke up at 5. I started my run at 5:30, and I ran 5 miles, as I just said. When I started my run, my sugar was 140, and when I finished my 5 miles, it was 160. So when I got back from my run, I put my activity mode off, and then I gave myself a correction to bring my sugar back down to 110, and that was it. So if I were to do that run later in the day, like 3-4 o'clock, I promise my sugar would have dropped. So not being as insulin sensitive in the morning really helps me get a good run in. I know I had seen a comment a little bit ago from a mother who was talking about her daughter who's a swimmer. And let me just say, I'm the worst swimmer ever. I don't think I could even correctly swim, but that's a lot of energy and a lot of work. And I would say the same rules apply. Swimming, running, biking, it's all endurance training. So I would definitely do those tips. Always have hard candies on you, and they also don't melt as easily. I know that my husband always gets frustrated with me when we go out, because he says I'm never prepared. And it's even harder in the summer, because if I don't want to have to bring a bag with me. If I want to bring a Reese's cup to bring my sugar up, am I going to put that in my pants and it gets melted and it's nasty and chocolate's everywhere? So the hard candies I have found to be the best diabetic hack when it comes to getting your sugar up in a pinch. So hard candies, first thing in the morning, and activity mode. Those are my 3 diabetic hacks to having a fitness pro lifestyle and also being a type 1 diabetic. Because while fitness can be a lot harder when you're a diabetic, I also think it's so much more important to have a good fitness routine when you are a diabetic, because it helps keep your sugars more stable, it keeps you healthier, and it helps you live long. I remember I read a study once, and please, I'm sure this is not right, but I've been telling myself it as my reason to get up every morning and do it, is that every time you wake up and run or work out or do some sort of fitness, it increases your lifespan by 7 days. So if you wake up every day and run, it increases your life by 7 days. Now, that sounds crazy to me, because if I wake up 6 days a week, I would never die at that point. But, so I'm sure it's not true, but I'm sure there are some logistics behind it that prove that waking up and exercising is good for the body, it's good for the soul, it's good for your blood sugar, and I definitely recommend it. I hope that you guys found this video beneficial today. I know I was a little bit scattered as per usual, but I hope that you guys got some things out of this video. If you are looking to have a positive fitness life and then also have type 1 diabetes, or maybe you're on the Omnipod insulin pump, I hope you got some great tips today. Please give this video a big thumbs up, and if you made it to the end, why don't you put a fun running or workout emoji down in my comments below, just to let me know that you made it all the way to the end. Thank you guys so much for coming with me today and chit-chatting with me about my fitness routine and my type 1 diabetes, and I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.